The other, just before we get to the next story, just wanted to mark the markets. IT is really down in trade, 1% lower. So keep that at the back of your mind. And then autos is the other pocket. If you can just pull up the Nifty auto and see what that's doing, 0.5%. And the reason I did this is because our next guest is somebody who tracks IT and auto very closely. But we are going to do a specific conversation on autos with him because, I mean, it's all of the rare earth impact conversations on the auto sector. Can we add a perspective or a layer to this as well? Does monsoon have a large impact? And is this something that we should keep an eye out for? Puneet has a detailed piece on this. Puneet.
Well, thanks so much for that. So definitely we've looked at the past few years and the data for that, how the above normal monsoon years essentially, which was 2020, 2022 and 24, have actually impacted the auto sector, and if there is any correlation, and we are going to look at that very quickly. First, of course, is these were the 3 years. We've taken the last 10 years data and looked at these 3 years also specifically at post-industry trends. The key aspect is the outperformance that we saw, especially in the last year, 75%, and it was one of the biggest years for auto in terms of sales as well as strong financial performance for the company. So here it is. Post that, we've seen there are 3 key aspects how the above normal monsoon helps sales growth. One is, of course, the uptick in rural demand because of higher income. We also see higher kharif sowing, which helps farmers get ahead of the season. And also in a good season where the monsoons are good as well as the plantations have been very decent, we see additional income for farmers as well as everyone associated with this environment to get benefited and lead to purchases, also get premium vehicles going forward. When you look at some of the key aspects and impact of the company's stock performance in this particular time frame, we've seen an increased trend, especially in the last year where M&M as well as Tata Motors were the biggest gainers, followed by someone like a Maruti Suzuki. The trend was also visible in 2020 during that time when the above normal monsoon was coming. Could have some impact because of the pandemic and the stock price correction, but the stock prices reflect that there is a correlation. When you also look at some of the key segments that stand to gain very quickly, and these are for the other companies, similar trend in both the years as well. For someone like in the two-wheeler space, there's of course a lot of direct benefit for the entry-level motorcycle brands. We see, we've highlighted some of the key ones for across players, Hero, Bajaj, and TVS. Similarly, in the four-wheeler space as well as the other key segments, let's go across that too very quickly as well. In three-wheelers, we see these are the key brands which get impacted for these specific companies. Well, within tractors as well, we've seen M&M, Escorts as well as Sonalika, which is unlisted, but all three get a strong pivot because of this. On the passenger vehicle side as well as the LCVs, which is the light commercial vehicles, we see brands like, for M&M specifically, Bolero is one of the biggest sellers in the rural market as an SUV. There is no direct competition as well, so one of the key benefits is there. While for Maruti, we see a strong pivot in the entry-level cars. Finally, in terms of LCVs, also smaller commercial vehicles, we've seen both Tata Motors and Ashok Leyland having increased focus on this small market where they weren't present as much. We see Mahindra very actively in that space. So definitely a key winner there. In terms of the revenue growth, and here is where it gets interesting because across the last 3 years, we've seen a strong pivot in terms of revenue growth for all companies. Mahindra and Mahindra being one of the biggest one, but look at Maruti as well. All 3 years, the company has done very well in terms of above normal monsoon rain years, essentially. Something like an Ashok Leyland also positive pivot in FY22 as well as FY24. Let's look at the other list as well for two-wheelers specifically, because here as well, we see a strong correlation for someone like a TVS as well as Bajaj Auto in terms of revenue growth, both in 22 as well as in 2024. Finally, in terms of how that has translated, into profits as well specifically, we've seen an increased trend in the last year specifically for these players. For both Hero as well as Bajaj Auto as well as TVS, someone in the last couple of years has been a very, very strong pivot. Finally, just to end this discussion, how does the FY26 look like in terms of above normal monsoon? We've seen strong revenue guidance coming in from brokerages, estimating 3 key winners. We've seen Maruti and M&M being one of the biggest ones in terms of revenue growth. But we've also seen someone like a Bajaj Auto actually start getting that positive pivot from brokerages because of its realignment of its portfolio as well. So these are some of the key aspects that we put together for monsoon as well as the auto sector. And data does reflect that there is some correlation there.